So my journey here also kind of extended into more statistics and math and kind of graduated into more data science, data analytics, and eventually AI. The reasons for success were more about how close we were to customers. So then given that, I kind of started pivoting my career to say, well, if that's what's going to make or break a company, right? And I find that it's a good way to sort of get coverage about how our companies and kind of users are thinking about the business world today.
Hello and welcome everyone to the next episode of the A Media House podcast, Simulated Reality. Today we have with us Paul Pilotte. He's a leader for AI and machine learning at MathWorks. Welcome, Paul. How are you
Hi,
today?
everyone. Very pleased to be with you today.
Fantastic. So, Paul, before we kind of dive into the topic, right? How has your journey been into MathWorks? Definitely quite passionate about the
Right.
work that you're doing.
Yeah, I'd say I've been very fortunate in my career, right? I actually trained as an electrical engineering and computer science major at MIT. I have a bachelor's and master's there. And for the first 10 years of my career, I worked as a design engineer and got some really good experience in doing hardware designs using MATLAB and kind of using a bunch of different technologies. And then in my career, I found that the reasons why the companies I was working for, both large and smaller startup companies, and I found that the reasons for success were more about how close we were to customers. So then given that, I kind of started pivoting my career to say, well, if that's what's going to make or break a company, right, then I want to be closer to that. So I gradually in my career started moving closer to customers, and I moved into other roles that were very technical, but were more product management, product marketing roles because I wanted to be closer to customers, right? And I did that across a bunch of different industries that are, I think, some of the same. Like MathWorks actually serves many industries, automotive, aero, and so on. So I had worked for companies across many of those industries. So I thought that was, and I kind of had kind of a mathematical bent and kind of had used a lot of algorithms and so on. So I felt like I had and I worked with some later in my career, I started working with more enterprise software companies and started really getting a passion for how to basically satisfy software enterprise customers, right? So then that kind of led me to this role at MathWorks to sort of pull it all together in terms of working with math and algorithms and kind of focus on more enterprise customers across a lot of really cool engineering disciplines and industries. And then the journey here at MathWorks, I started here about 15 years ago. And it's really changed quite a bit. Like in the kind of the early days, I was focusing more on specific areas like math, like symbolic math and optimization, statistics. And gradually these areas kind of shift. Like many of the areas that I first started in are kind of the foundation of AI today. So my journey here also kind of extended into more statistics and math and kind of graduated into more data science, data analytics, and eventually AI, both predictive AI and more recently generative AI. So I've been fortunate, I think, to have started more at the foundation level of a lot of the underlying math concepts for AI and graduated almost as the industry and customers did as far as using the like building more data science platforms and kind of AI modeling techniques on top of that, if you will. So I've been pretty fortunate in kind of the other interesting thing too that your audience may be interested in is some of these older techniques like going back to maybe sometimes what's interesting is I talked to some customers about if you want to model something and you already know the equation for it, say Ohm's law, right, V equals IR, you should use it and not try to apply AI to that. So it's also kind of, I've been fortunate to have a strong foundation in kind of electrical engineering and kind of domain areas as well as mathematical foundation areas. And I think it's important maybe for your audience to recognize that some of those older techniques are still sometimes may still be the best way to do things. So in this world of AI and data-driven modeling, we ought not lose sight of the fact that if you know what the equation is for certain things, then that might be the best way to build a model.
Definitely.
Kind of have come full circle in some ways.
Fantastic. I think that's a very interesting perspective. With you mentioned that there has been an evolution of the technology that you have developed over a period of time. There's been a lot of AI and machine learning that has been now introduced, and you're building a product that enables a lot of researchers as well as enterprises to build AI and ML over it. What is your experience in terms of building a product that can enable AI and ML modeling, right? Is there a difference between leading a product team and the different stakeholders involved when
Yeah.
it does not have AI and it does have AI?
It's a really great question. The way I think about it is there are some things in this role of leading teams building software technology for users. Some things are kind of common across all product development initiatives, right? So I view my role as a product management leader as having a deep understanding of our customers and kind of collaborating across a bunch of teams in development, marketing, and the field teams as well. So some of those things I would say are common, right? Regardless of whether you're working on software or building products that have AI or not. The first thing is stay really close to your customers. So part of my role as a leader in this area is to really get close to customers to synthesize customer insights, right? What do customers care about? And I do that by taking every opportunity I can get to be in front of customers presenting or visiting customers. I grab those opportunities. I also stay very close to our field teams as well because they're at the pulse of helping customers out, right? So other things that I think are important, even for non-AI areas, is staying current on trends, right? So I try to do a lot of proactive things around reading the media. Like I've actually started about a year ago. I get the Wall Street Journal every day, right? So I kind of read on that, and I find that it's a good way to sort of get coverage about how our companies and kind of users are thinking about the business world today. So my journey, I've kind of merged the technology background I have with more of a business background. So I think it's important to sort of stay current in trends and kind of like one way I think about it is read the things that our customers are reading. I think a lot of our customers or leaders that our customers read the Wall Street Journal or may may read some journals such as yours, Shop, right? I think it's important to sort of stay current in what customers are looking at, and that's true for all things, right? And then I think the other area I would say is cross-functional collaboration, right? It takes a team of people to sort of work on products in the AI space and kind of beyond, right? So my role there is trying to be a good voice of the customer to sort of for our internal development teams and engage deeply in with our development teams, right? The last thing I'll say, and we can talk more about this later, right, is I kind of see my role as being a visible external leader. And I do that by working with a lot of analysts and kind of analyst relations, doing PR interviews like this to try to communicate to a broad audience, and then speaking at external events as well. Maybe another topic for later is I see my role and kind of given the opportunities I've had to sort of give back a bit through volunteering, but maybe that's a topic for later, Kashap.
Fantastic. I think
Um,
one of the things that stood out for me is, you like to read what your end customers are reading, which is a very interesting perspective. And that is probably the first time that I'm hearing, because usually when, let's say, there is a team who's building an AI product, they probably want to keep appraised of the latest technologies and the latest papers that are being published, the latest research that is being read. But with regards to kind of keeping up to date with regard what some of the customers are reading is
right.
a very unique perspective. Can you shed a little bit light on
Sure.
that as
Sure.
well as
Maybe
any?
too, like, kind of, I see my role is not necessarily to be a technologist and knowing everything about AI. We have a lot of people here at MathWorks who are experts in that probably have PhDs in those areas. But for me, I think it's more understand what our customers need, right? So I read things like IEEE Spectrum tends to be the sort of reputable kind of engineering journal that many of our customers read, or SAE is kind of more of an industry kind of specific journal for automotive, right? So I try to immerse myself in. Sometimes I imagine like knowing my experience, if I worked for one of our customers, what would I be reading and thinking about? It kind of leads you to an interesting thing around. We have customers in, say, the 5G wireless area, and they've approached us for help about how do you build, or employ AI in 5G communication systems. So then to do that, I feel like I need to know enough about 5G communications. And I took some courses in college about that. But for me, I'm more interested in kind of like I feel like I have a good foundation about AI modeling, but I am more interested in understanding what's the trend around 5G communications or about automated driving or software defined vehicle. So I probably spend more of my time thinking about trends that our customers care about. And then my AI thinking is more about, like as I said before, it's almost like imagine if I were part of the customer's team, what would I be what would I be doing in that environment? And that's a good way to have empathy for your customers, which I think is a key thing that I've always thought about is kind of empathize with your customer and trying to understand their problems, what they're trying to do. And
Correct.
then what's interesting about that too, if it helps too, is a lot of our customers are making a journey from, building like being customers who build systems like a 5G wireless system or a car, and they're looking to add more and more software to that. And kind of automotive companies have had software in cars for decades, right? But now there's more of a push towards software-defined vehicle around, almost having the car be almost like your phone. Like you buy the phone, like you buy the car, but then there are some baseline things that are included as part of it, like the the transmission, these days the battery system, but that other things like the infotainment system could be programmed, if you will, as a software option. There might be some software things that are included as part of the system, right? Like a driver assist system or a automated park assist software system. But then other things like automated driving systems could be optional add-ons, if you will. So I think a lot of our customers are also using AI, but also rethinking about what does it mean to be a provider of engineered systems that have a high amount of software components in them. And then part of that kind of drives our customers to think about things from the requirements level up, if you will, right? So I think that's kind of another thing that I think I try to do a lot of is try to really imagine what our customers are going through. And sure, many of our customers have kind of AI as one of their strategic priorities. Some of our customers call these big bets. But I think you get, like, to me, what I do is I'll often look at our customers' investor relations pages and their strategy and try to immerse myself into their thinking.
Correct. I think it's a great thought process, right? Thinking from ground up as to what exactly is the requirement. There is no other place to kind of learn what they are trying to achieve. With regards to building so when you start building a product, right, especially which enables building of AI, there are different things to consider in product management, right? Its life cycle, the strategy, business development. What are some of the different stakeholders involved, right, in this that kind of enable and are very crucial to the success of the AI product?
Sure, absolutely. Let's start from customers as well. So the end customer is one stakeholder, and then working back from that is our field engineering sales teams, and they're very close to those customers. So I think being close to them, and then because we have a global field team, it takes some time as a product manager to sort of build relationships and get to know field engineers across the globe. But it's also very enlightening to understand, are the field engineers supporting automotive customers in Germany hearing the same things that our teams in Japan or in Michigan are hearing as well, or in the Valley with some of the newer EV companies. So I think that starts with our customers and works back with the people serving our customers. And then internally, it then becomes our software development teams. And then for us, it's both the teams that are building our AI technology. And then for us, right, we have other adjacent teams that are building other domains specific tools like signal processing, image processing. So we have kind of the notion of a development program where we try to coordinate across multiple teams. Some teams are developing, for example, machine learning modeling tools or deep learning modeling tools. Then others are providing more of the signal processing, image processing tools. And then some are more dedicated on applications like wireless that I mentioned earlier. So internally, there are a lot of stakeholders who are in our product development teams, and there's the product development leads in engineering. Then there's the product management leads across other teams as well. And kind of coordinating across all those teams becomes part of the interesting product management challenge, but also opportunity.
And what has been the most efficient strategy to kind of enable coordination and teamwork among these stakeholders so as to achieve everyone's objectives?
Right, right. Part of it, I think, is having we call them programs, but it's basically collaborating together on planning on your main goals, if you will. The other thing I'd say is sometimes things change over time. An example of that, like 5 or 6 years ago, when we started on maybe focusing on AI, right? It was more about our customers were trying to understand these tools and said, okay, well, deep learning was just taking off in those days. So early on, our customers were just wanting to understand more about these tools and have some ways to get started, right? So our development team is focused on kind of getting started materials around making it easy to do this with just a few lines of code or building apps to make it easy for engineers to begin learning AI tools and techniques. And we built a lot of examples. So kind of in the early days when customers were just getting started and wanted to understand the technology, and they probably often had more of a technology focus. People wanted to know, what is deep learning? How can it be used? And kind of in those early days, it was mostly about using it for images and so on. But then over time, right, and I'll bring this back to the customers as well, right? Like that was very successful for several years. And we built a lot of on-ramping materials for our both commercial users as well as academia users. But then over time, right, people knew enough about it that they then moved towards wanting help for us to help them with real applications. And then we kind of pivoted towards focusing more on applications of AI. And as a team, right, we kind of said, okay, well, what are the top applications? And we narrowed in on several of those, right? like examples of those are like predictive maintenance is something that many of our customers who are building engineered systems, right, need to make sure that those systems stay operational. So that was been one big focus. So the other thing was kind of moving with the market, right? Like after people kind of became familiar with this technology, then it was more about how do you apply it and get value from it. So then nowadays we're focused more on what are the applications of, right, like applications that our customers care about. And then I think it's also important as a leader to sort of have some overarching themes, kind of be able to tell an inspirational story internally. And we use words like engineered systems, right? Which might be easier to sort of just describe an engineered system for your audience. If you think about a wind turbine has several components, electrical components and mechanical components, like the blades, if you will. They have a motor, they have a gearbox. So it's basically a system of different electronic and mechanical components that can be modeled with multi-domain modeling tools, which we actually have, right? But then together, right, there's a complete system, right, whose role is pretty complex, right, is to harness wind energy to create electricity. So we've thought about a lot of engineered systems, right? Then this, right, that's kind of in the overarching category, right? Which means that our customers need to use AI with simulation. And then examples of that are kind of the predictive maintenance of a wind turbine system, or automated driving systems is another good example where you have some software technology that's kind of already like some of it may be non-AI. We built a lot of AI technology for automated driving systems, both for modeling like the scene or for kind of another really cool application I think that's talks about thinking from an engineering point of view is it turns out that a lot of our automotive customers are moving towards designing and selling EVs. So there's a critical requirement to know what the battery state of charge is, right? On your cell phone, right, you have the bars and know when your cell phone's charged. So the same thing is true in an electric vehicle. And it turns out it's not so easy to know what the battery state of charge is in a battery like in an EV vehicle. And it turns out working with our customers that if you take a lot of the measurements that are already available in a car, right, you can actually use a deep learning model to very accurately predict the state of charge in an EV vehicle. And one of our customers actually is using deep learning for that. But the interesting thing I thought was they took a very methodical engineering approach to it to say they wanted to have this deep learning model integrated into an existing microcontroller unit on a car. And they knew the memory footprint of that, and they had like 100 milliseconds total budget. So it was kind of an engineering problem to say, I want to build a deep learning algorithm to model state of charge, but define requirements like how many milliseconds of time can you allocate towards making that computation, and kind of how much memory footprint can you allocate to that. So it's really like using AI, but really taking a more methodical design engineering approach. And we see a lot of our customers doing that. And then as part of that, there's the design requirements up front and building the AI model, integrating it into the overall battery system, and then simulating it and making sure that all those requirements are met. I think this is kind of the way of the future around thinking of AI as just another design component for a design engineer to use as part of building an overall system.
No, definitely. And kind of the anecdotes that you give put some context to it and kind of help familiarize with what you're talking about, right? Exactly. One of the things is, right, when it comes to product, every product has a lifespan, something, right? From the context of some of the products that you are building, right, which have AI in them and at the same time enable your customers to build AI or model machine learning models, right? What does this lifespan exactly mean, right? And how do you enhance that lifespan of a product?
Right, it's a great question, right? Maybe another story about that, right? So as I mentioned earlier, when I got started, right, we had products focusing on statistics. It turned out that a lot of those products actually did machine learning, like it just wasn't called that. So so I found that a lot of products often have a life cycle where maybe they have capabilities that are what your end user needs and your customers need, but but they may not be called the right thing. It's hard for customers to understand it, or it's missing other stuff, right? So one thing we've done that I think could be useful for others out there on similar journeys is we had a product that was literally called Statistics Toolbox. But because it had a lot of machine learning capabilities in it, what we did was we focused on making it easy for engineers to use by building apps to make it easy to sort of select features and more graphically point and click wise build a machine learning model. And then we actually renamed the product, kind of changed its personality in a way to be statistics and machine learning. So then part of it is, the marketing focus on your audience might call it repositioning, but it's kind of really morphing a product to say, like, it has all the foundations, right? But your customers are looking for something a little different. The other part of that journey too, I think, related to what I mentioned earlier about our customers wanting applications. We've also focused quite a bit on building reference examples for applications with like machine learning, right? So, for example, we have another product that's focused on predictive maintenance for doing remaining useful life estimation. But then we've built some reference examples for gearboxes or bearings, right? So we've worked quite a bit to not just have the underlying capabilities, but have complete examples that customers can use, sometimes out of the box because it exactly meets their needs, or gives them a notion about how they might adapt it to their needs as well. So I think products have an evolution, but I think it's like in some cases, like you might say that that product is kind of at its end of life, if you will. But more what I've seen is kind of it's more that it has to like morph into maybe something newer, if you will, or closer to what customers are looking for. Another example of that is we have a neural network toolbox, which has been around for probably 20 years, right? Even kind of the pre-AI days, right? A lot of our customers were using neural networks for embedded applications. But then we recognized that the modeling technique that became more promising was deep learning. So then we shifted our focus from classical smaller neural networks to deep learning. And then from that point on, we started really shifting our investment towards deep learning and supporting those algorithms for images first with CNNs and then LSTMs for more time series data. So I think it's more of, I think, responding to what you're hearing from customers and kind of many products and kind of technologies can be kind of shifted closer to what customers are looking for. That's been my experience. And it's less about they don't become useful. It's more that it needs to change and morph to be closer to what customers are looking for at that particular point in the technology life cycle.
And considering this continuous evolution of products, right, along with the intricacies of some of the features that it enables a lot of AI professionals to build good AI and machine learning. What is a good marketing strategy, right? What is a good go-to marketing strategy that will enhance its visibility to the end users and also kind of appease a diverse set of customers, right? And
Right.
I think MathWorks is a good example because they've worked with enterprises, researchers, academics, right? Wide array of stakeholders. So if you can help us
Sure.
understand how you crack that.
That's a great question, right? And then some things, as I mentioned, some things apply to all of your stakeholders and customer segments. Like when people were wanting to learn about deep learning and AI, that was true across the board. That was true in both academia, professors educating, as well as commercial customers as well. So then we had a marketing strategy to build kind of getting started types of artifacting tools, and that worked well across our industries. When things morphed more towards people wanting to apply this, then it became a bit different in terms of there were some industry applications, like when we focus on applications, there were some that were relevant for different industries, right? Automated driving, clearly for automotive. Visual inspection actually is another focus that maps across many industry verticals. And then some become more specific, like wireless communications is a big industry for us, right? So doing something specific there made sense. And academia became different. It became really understanding who your personas were, right? Like we have educators and researchers and then students, and kind of understanding what the needs of each are. So then we built a lot of onboarding materials for educators and curriculum materials for educators as well. So I think in our marketing strategy kind of expands that as well, right? So some of our marketing, like so our marketing now is like some is common across, right? There are some things that span across, right? For example, things like engineered systems are things that I think a lot of educators care about. It's kind of a good way for students to know about, okay, well, you need to understand about AI, but you need to know how to apply them in a particular area. And maybe learning about automotive and mechatronics is important to get a job at an EV company. And the same kind of message, I think, tweaked a bit works for commercial customers as well. I've given talks about how the oil and gas industry can kind of shift towards being serving more clean energy by using AI for engineered systems. So I think there's some commonalities is what I'd say first. The other thing that I really came to appreciate as part of the Gen AI trend, right, is the importance of your community and kind of influencers. It turns on in Gen AI, and that's also a focus for us, right? Like the first users who told us what they wanted and became very kind of enthusiastic were some of our community leaders, and some were in academia, some were commercial. And I find that that's kind of maybe a new way of marketing today around tapping into community influencers. They were the first ones, and even like so part of the market, part of my role there as a leader in the marketing space was, again, to be close to customers. I basically volunteered to talk to any of our users who were really leaning into generative AI a lot. It was ChatGPT in that case. And one professor who teaches physics basically used to, kind of in the olden days, he actually would create a lot of videos on using MATLAB to sort of give his students the foundations they need in math to be able to attend his physics class. And now he morphed and said he actually built a lot of tools for actually connecting MATLAB to ChatGPT. And now we shifted his thinking towards inviting students to learn the underlying math tools through ChatGPT and come to his class ready to learn physics. So he used some very interesting words like he sees generative AI as a way for his students to get to physics faster, but which was I think very
Unique.
inspirational, right?
Yeah.
And I think though in talking to customers like that, what was very interesting, and he was a he is a very passionate person, right? And I learned a lot from him. But then I also asked him on the times I had with him, it's like, well, this is great for you, right? But how about your colleagues, other professors, or the administration? What are they thinking? And it became pretty clear that he was somewhat of a promising outlier who was really leaning into this kind of ahead of others, right? So I think it helps you to also, right, get a sense for like there are some people who will be first to sort of adopt a technology, but then they're also the ones who can tell you a lot about what others care about and kind of what it's going to take for others to kind of come along for the ride.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time. As we reach the end of this discussion, could you offer some key insights or lessons learned from your journey in AI product development and the overall stakeholder collaboration, right? And how these insights have informed your approach in this dynamic field?
Absolutely. Thank you. A key theme that I think I've tried to convey is stay close to customers, right? Engage, listen, learn, enable. In the AI space, I see there's two different types of AI. There's predictive AI, using AI as a model and engineered system. And I think using that as in a very systematic way to design requirements. And then many of our customers want to put those AI components into the system as embedded software. So I think that's another important thing. And then there's, of course, generative AI. Um, Another key theme I think is about leadership. One is about people and collaboration, right? Because it takes like, so I have my role as far as the product management lead person, but there's a lot of other teams and people who I work with. And I think part of that is inspiring, leading, recognizing, encouraging, because it takes a community and a team of folks. The other suggestion I would have is grab opportunities to get in front of customers as often as you can. And I would say kind of engage in thinking like your customers, as I mentioned earlier, kind of pretend you're part of their teams. Develop hypotheses, puzzles. I often think about what would I do if I was one of our customers, and I develop a hypothesis that makes sense to me, and then I bounce it off of other people to help refine my thinking about it. So part of that as well too as a leader is kind of develop stories and narratives about how customers will get value from AI, right? The other thing too, I think we tried a bit about like was I think there's a real big opportunity to collaborate with academia. I think it's interesting. I gave a talk about a year ago at one of our customers, and the CTO leads a data science team, right? And I kind of made a pitch to say they should really reach out to their local like universities for a number of reasons because a lot of researchers want to work with industry. Students like want to learn and kind of it's a way to sort of tap into the energy of students and find the best students to hire, right? So I think there's a lot that can be done to in for industry professionals to collaborate with academia.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Paul, for your time today. I think you added some great insights into the entire conversation of a product life cycle and how your approach is, especially when it comes to managing different products that are built on AI and also helping build
Right,
AI. So thank
right,
you so much, Paul.
right. Thank you, Kashap. Like the other thing too, I think we talked about it before we got on air. I think it's a unique time for everyone to sort of lean into AI. I think it's like I was mentioning earlier that there are many times in my career where I found these transformative opportunities. So it's an opportunity for students, for people in the middle of their career to really lean into, understand this, and be a leader in this space. And then the last thing I think I mentioned a bit too before we started, right, is it's an opportunity for people like myself, maybe later in their careers, to sort of volunteer and give back. I actually participate on this local like university advisory board. So I think it's something too that late in your career, I think having experience, like if other people have had similar experiences, giving back and finding ways to contribute this to the next generation of students and to other groups to help advance other DEI causes, or I'm also part of a responsible AI ESG like leadership group. So I think there's something for everyone here and something for people like myself where I feel like there's a responsibility to give back and kind of apply these lessons learned. And that's partly why I think I jumped at this opportunity to have this call with you today, Kashap. I hope that some of these insights are helpful for your audience.
No, definitely. Thank you so much.